Boys, we got a bleeder at aisle 6, ladies and gentlemen.
Stand on my pots, I'm drunk and I'm pissed.
For the best the poker world has to offer, subscribe to Poker Go now.
Your super high roller bowl 7 champion, Daniel Negreanu.
Oh yeah!
Wheels are coming off.
That's the craziest hand I've ever seen.
The World Series of Poker, high stakes poker, no gamble, no future, and so much more.
What was that bite?
Sign up at PokerGo.com using promo code CardPlayer to get $20 off the first year of an annual subscription now.
Hi everyone, this is two-time World Poker Tour champion Jonathan Little, and I want to tell you about my training site, PokerCoaching.com. Poker coaching is the place to be if you want to increase your poker skills and learn to crush the games. It's the only place to quickly increase your win rate with active learning, so you can achieve your full poker potential without having to hire an expensive coach. Right now, podcast listeners can score a free membership by visiting pokercoaching.com/cardplayer and get access to top training tools like our interactive hand quizzes, our 7, 14, and 30-day challenges, and a roster of elite coaches such as Matt Affleck, James Romero, Burt DraftGanger Stevens, Michael Acevedo, and dozens of others. Again, that's pokercoaching.com/cardplayer to get your free membership right now.
By now, you've heard about Global Poker, one of the fastest growing online card rooms available in the US and Canada today. So what's stopping you from trying it out? Global Poker is a safe and secure social poker site that uses their own patented sweepstakes model. Signing up is easy. You can use Google, Facebook, or just an email address. You can always play for free on Global Poker, but you can also buy gold coins for additional play, which will earn sweeps coins that can be redeemed for real cash to a bank account, Skrill account, or even as a gift card. Get a free 5,000 gold coins when you sign up right now at globalpoker.com.
Poker Stories is an audio series that features casual interviews with some of the game's best players and personalities. Each episode highlights a well-known figure in the poker world and dives deep into their favorite tales both on and off the field.
Hello and welcome to Poker Stories, a podcast brought to you by Card Player, the poker authority, and hosted by me, Julio Rodriguez. This is episode number 150, and it features the 2023 World Series of Poker main event champion, Dan Weinman. The 35-year-old from Atlanta, Georgia defeated a record field of more than 10,000 entrants for a first place prize of $12.1 million. And actually, after a slow start at this year's WSOP, Dan almost skipped the main event entirely. But with some encouragement from friends, including 6-time bracelet winner Shaun Deeb, Dan went back to Vegas and made history. It was actually Dan's second bracelet, his first coming in 2022, when he also finished second in the WSOP Player of the Year race. In addition to playing high-stakes cash games, Dan also has a WSOP Circuit ring and 2 World Poker Tour titles, having won the Borgata Winter Open and the season-ending WPT Tournament of Champions in 2017. But believe it or not, Dan switched professions last year entirely, working as a software engineer for a company called RF Poker, which is dedicated to poker live stream operations and security. And although he plans to keep playing some poker and a lot of golf, he doesn't plan on quitting his day job anytime soon. This was a fun interview, and we talked about all sorts of topics, including the time he got robbed at a home game, and how he feels about having his face on a trading card, and also how he got his poker bankroll initially, which was by being one of the best Guitar Hero players in the world. Anyway, that is enough intro. Here is my conversation with Dan Weinman. I'm here on a road trip with Dan Weinman, the world champion for 2023. Dan, how you doing?
Doing good. It's still weird to hear a world champion, but I guess that's going to be something that sticks around for the next year or so.
Yeah, it's a title you're going to have to wear with honor, I'm assuming. Where are you driving to? You driving early this morning? We're talking while you're on a road trip, I guess.
Yeah, woke up in Atlanta, driving up to a friend's member guest tournament up in Chattanooga. So got a couple hours in the car and been meaning to talk to you for a while.
Now, when you say tournament, you're not talking poker, or is it golf?
This is a golf tournament. I'm sure there's going to be some poker games that happen at night, but the focus has shifted to golf for the next couple weeks.
Now, you're quite the golfer. Scratch, huh?
Yeah, I haven't been playing as much lately, and I'll always take some time off during the series and get a lot of poker in. But when I'm home, I'm either working or on the golf course.
Were you always a good golfer growing up? Did you play at school, or was it a late in life thing?
No, I was actually a tennis player growing up. My whole life was tennis. Kind of had aspirations of going pro one day, and then some injuries late in high school, and ended up had some offers to play at some bad D1 schools, or kind of be the star of a D2 school, and realized that I didn't have much of a future in tennis, so kind of focused on school, and then poker kind of got in the way, and then picked up golf kind of in college.
That's crazy that you picked it up in college and you're still a scratch golfer. Okay, so you grew up in Atlanta?
I did, about an hour north of the city in Alpharetta, and then went down to Georgia Tech for college.
Georgia Tech's a good school. Obviously, you were a smarty. Was your education something that the parents put a lot of emphasis on?
Definitely. I got to Georgia Tech, had no idea what I really wanted to do, and they kind of said, you like math, you like science, why don't you be an engineer? And there's a long line of people going for mechanical engineering, so I kind of hopped into that. But I knew kind of a few years into that program that it wasn't something I really wanted to pursue, but it was fortunate that online poker was kind of going crazy at that time, so it was a nice adjustment while I was in college.
A lot of the athletes, they take the cupcake courses if they're not going to end up using the degree.
That was the hard thing about tech is, a lot of athletes end up not going there because that track doesn't really exist. It's just a hard school, even for the athletes that I think they end up on a management track, but it's still a school where the education always comes first.
Still, you're over there crushing online. Was there ever a thought, okay, I don't even need the school, I could just do poker?
Not really, because I wasn't really crushing, as you would say, online. I played mostly micro stakes tournaments and cash games until my senior year of college, where I kind of realized, okay, if I want to do this full time, I need to actually try to make more than beer money.
So what was your actual first introduction to the game?
My dad and his friends played. My dad was a trader on Wall Street. His friends were all traders and into poker. So I was actually born up in Connecticut, and his friends, I think they probably had a weekly game. I think they were a bit more into it than he was. They were down at the Taj playing probably 20-40 Hold'em and stud before I was born. And then him and his friends all kind of moved down to Atlanta at the same time. And I remember being somewhere around 10 years old at one of his friends' house, and they just started up a poker game, and I was kind of hooked from the start. But it was such an interesting scenario being around these guys that had played poker forever and were kind of needling me, this 10-year-old, at the table, and I kind of fell in love with that atmosphere from the start.
So they let you play?
They did. I don't think we were playing for anything significant, a few bucks here or there, but it was kind of just like the camaraderie around the table, and I knew it was something that I was going to enjoy for a long time.
So you're in college, you're still finishing a very tough degree, but where's the turning point in poker where you realize, okay, I could do this for a living? Was there like a big score online, or?
No, there wasn't a big score. I was always very good at multitasking. So, even leading up to my senior year, I was playing 10 or 20 tables at a time, kind of playing the 180-man sit and goes on PokerStars, but playing the super small stakes ones, like the $2 ones, the $4 ones. It wasn't enough that you could ever actually make a profession out of it. And then I kind of just made the decision to try out cash games my senior year because PokerStars had the Supernova Elite program going on. And I gave it a shot for a couple months and saw that, I was kind of on pace to make Supernova Elite, and I was also winning money in the games. So I kind of just did a little projection of if we did this for a year, what would it look like? And it ended up coming out to, 3 or 4 times the salary I was looking at with my degree.
Was there ever a thought to doing both, or was there just not enough time?
I don't think there was enough time. I had a good friend back in the day that had a full-time job, was in grad school, was also Supernova Elite, and he just, seemed out of it all the time. I mean, he didn't sleep. He was just a complete zombie, but he found a way to make it work. But no, I still enjoyed, getting my 7-8 hours of sleep a night, and never really had the idea of working and playing.
Did you find that you became robotic at all in your game, playing that many tables and for that long?
Yeah, completely robotic. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that I was a very bad poker player back then. I was.
Well, you said you were winning.
I was winning, but I was mostly winning because of I was very good at managing the lobby. You could say I was a bum hunter back in the day. But I was still not playing any significant stakes. I think the biggest game I played was 1-2 full ring back then, but I would play 24 tables. So really just making a couple dollars per hour per table plus the rake back was going to end up being a pretty good salary.
24 tables at once is, you hear stories about the craziest people, but that's a big number. I mean, things are just popping up at you left and right.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. I played video games growing up, so I was kind of used to the constant stream of information. I was lucky enough to have some good tech people around me that kind of created some scripts that made it a lot easier, where I wouldn't say I really had to focus on all 24 tables at once, really just the ones that I was in a hand. And I was such a tight-knitty player back then, I wasn't in a lot of hands. So it wasn't as crazy as most people would think, but it was still a lot.
Now, talk about those early years as a pro. Was it strictly all online, or were you dipping your toes into some live poker? What about tournaments? When did that come into play?
Yeah, when I was playing full-time online, it was only 1 year that I made Supernova Elite. I did that in 2010, and then the plan was to do that in 2011 again, but unfortunately Black Friday happened. But at the same time, I was kind of dabbling in some live poker games in Atlanta, and gambling is illegal in Georgia. There's a fairly big poker scene, but it's all underground. I wasn't really in with the big games yet, so I would kind of have a schedule of playing 6 or 8 hours during the day, and a few times a week I would go play live in some underground games, and I found myself enjoying that a lot more. Not only were they softer and the stakes were 10 times as big, but it was nice not to be just kind of stuck at the computer the whole day.
Was there ever any danger for you as far as those private games?
Yeah, a couple of times. When I was in college, I didn't have access to the greatest games, so it would kind of be, I've got a friend that plays a 1-2 game somewhere in the city, and he brings me. I didn't really consider the security or safety at the time, so I do remember, there was one time I got robbed leaving a game. I was already having some success online, and it was kind of a situation where I was selling online money to people at the game, and they kind of knew I would be leaving it with cash. So that wasn't the most fun. And kind of after that, I kind of focused on safety and security more than how good the game was.
Was it a gentle robbery, or did you get roughed up?
No, it was gentle. I wouldn't say you're prepared for something like that, but I kind of always felt that if that happened, it would kind of be a situation where I would say, take my money, take whatever you want. I don't know what else you're going to get at me, but it was about as smoothly as something like that could go.
Okay, so what about your first dip into the tournament circuit?
The tournament circle came a little bit later. I think it was right around Black Friday. I was living with a few friends out in Lake Tahoe. We had rented a house out there, and we were snowboarding in the morning and playing online during the day. And kind of when Black Friday happened, we were all just kind of at a loss for what to do, and traveled around a little bit. And I had maybe played the Sunday Million a few times on PokerStars, and that was my, complete tournament experience. I remember going down to stop in West Palm, and that may have been my first Hendon Mob cash ever, to be honest. But I think I played 3 or 4 tournaments down there. Final table 2 of them. And I think chopped 1, and kind of had this feeling that these guys are playing, $500, $1,000, $2,000 tournaments, and they're worse than the guys that I'm playing with at 25 cent, 50 cent online. And kind of, I wouldn't say I made the switch to being a tournament player right away, but kind of had this feeling that was the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah. What about traveling? Did that seem like something that appealed to you?
Yeah, traveling definitely seemed fun. One of the perks of Supernova Elite was a couple of live packages. So I remember going to Madrid and playing the EPT Grand Final there. Ended up doing well. That was, again, so early in my tournament career, I had no idea what I was really doing. But I find myself trip leader after day 2, and there's €1.5 million up top, and I can't even imagine that amount of money at that point in my life. But yeah, the traveling was always really interesting to me, although I definitely made the mistake I think a lot of poker players do, where the poker was kind of the only thing I did on these trips. I remember a trip to Aussie Millions where I went for, I think, almost 3 weeks, and I left the casino one day to go to the Aussie Open, the tennis. And looking back, it's a once in a lifetime trip, and I spent the whole thing sitting at the Crown.
At least you did watch a little tennis with that one day. I mean, I remember trips to Atlantic City where I definitely didn't leave Borgata. So
yeah, I mean, that's a little different. There's not a ton to do in AC. Borgata's probably the nicest place there.
All right, let's talk about this circuit ring that you won in 2015, $250,000. Was that like your first big score, like a life-changing score?
Yeah, I would say so. I've had so many times in my poker career, if you want to call it that, where I was kind of unsure of what was coming next. From online going down and finding tournaments. I actually almost completely got out of poker in 2012 and had a nice backing score at the World Series main event. And it was around that time in 2015 that I was kind of at another crossroads. I had been playing some live games in Atlanta that were pretty big at the time, but that had kind of fallen apart. And I remember going up to that stop in Cherokee thinking, if this doesn't work out, maybe it's time to start looking for a job again. But end up going really deep in that tournament and winning it for $250,000. And that kind of just, I would say, fueled the fire under me again to get back out there and keep grinding.
Let's talk about 2017. Huge year for you. You started off in January by winning at Borgata, speak of the devil, $900,000 and a WPT championship. What was that like?
That was crazy. I talked, previously about these inflection points in my career. I was at a very low point going into that tournament. I would say after the Cherokee win in 2015, I probably had a bit too much of an ego. I was playing a little bit too big. I kind of found myself running in these big circles where I was definitely the brokest player and the worst player. And I was trying to play the stakes that these guys were, running around with Shaun Deeb and Jason Mercier and Joe McKeehan, who had just won the main. We were playing some very high stakes open face Chinese, high stakes mix, where I was almost certainly the worst player in the game. So I remember going into that Borgata tournament, nearly dead broke, and kind of hitting that big score right at an opportune time.
$900,000 and a WPT championship. That puts you into the Tournament of Champions in April. A few months later, you win that one for almost $400K. And then later that summer, third at the series in a 6-max event. Big year for you, obviously. How does that change things?
Yeah, that was obviously my biggest year until this year. I wouldn't say it changed a whole lot. I'm not a big believer that, winning one tournament or going deep in a couple of tournaments suddenly makes you this fantastic poker player. I think I learned my lesson the hard way in 2015 with that. but it did give me, whether you want to call it the bankroll or the confidence to continue playing more. I think I was living in DC at the time with Sam Panzica, who also had won a couple of WPTs, and a good friend of mine from Atlanta, Harley Thrower. And yeah, I mean, it was a very crazy year, winning all that money and then kind of deciding what to do from there. And that was kind of what I've done for the past 4 or 5 years, kind of in this I'm not really sure what's next situation.
But when did this job come with RF Poker?
Yeah, the RF Poker job came about a year ago. So at the end of 2022, I'd been living up north for the previous 5 or 6 years. I was in Boston for a little bit when the Encore opened up at Boston Harbor. And then I was down in Connecticut for a few years playing at the Mohegan and Foxwoods. And eventually just got tired of living up north, being in the cold. All my family and friends were still down south in Atlanta, so I kind of made the decision to move back. And I kind of just had this feeling that poker, or maybe live poker, was going in the wrong direction. All of the games that
Wait, hold on 1 second. I have to interrupt you here because you're saying this is happening at the end of 2022?
Correct.
Okay, let's talk about your summer of 2022 just to give the listeners some context here, because you won a bracelet last year. You won the 1K PLO for another $250,000. You also cashed in the 50K Poker Players Championship. You also finished 4th in the Hall of Fame Bounty event. You also finished runner-up in the $1,500 stud event. You had, by all accounts, what it seemed to be a pretty good summer. So why
definitely.
Why the doom and gloom?
No, so I would say like my poker game and the experience I was having with poker was kind of on the up. I mean, I had the best summer I've ever had. Was in the Player of the Year race the whole time, and Dan Zach ended up kind of edging me out at the end, but that was such a fun battle with him and Shaun the whole summer. I was about as positive with poker as I had been in my whole career, but I would still say I was more a cash game player than a tournament player. And all of the games that I had played had just gone private. And it was kind of the case where, everyone seemed to like me, but nobody really wanted me in the game. It's like I don't bring a lot of value to the game. I'm a winning player. I always have a smile at my face on the table. I'm not the kind of person that just kind of wants to cater to the suckers to make them feel good. The whole private poker scene just seems very disingenuous to me. So it's not that, my poker game was going downhill. I just kind of had a bad outlook on the future of poker outside of tournaments, and kind of made a decision that, I can still play a little bit on the side, but I would like to focus elsewhere.
Cool. Okay. So when this opportunity for RF Poker comes, it seems like it's perfect for you. It's in your hometown. It's poker related, and now all of a sudden you could use that degree.
Yeah, it was great. About 4 or 5 years ago, I went back to school and got a software engineering degree. It was something that I had always toyed with. I almost saw it as like another video game to play. Moving back to Atlanta, not really knowing what the poker scene was like here, I was super lucky to find this company, RF Poker, kind of the week I moved back. The founder of this company,
Monit Madan.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that was the founder. So yeah, I found Monit on Twitter actually, when the whole Robbie Garrett cheating scandal was going on at Hustler. He was on Twitter a lot because RF Poker kind of solved a lot of those issues with the security and live streaming, and ended up talking with Monit, and we ended up realizing we had a lot of the same goals, and I kind of hopped on with them maybe a week or two after I moved back to Atlanta. So without really kind of even interviewing at all, it was just a nice fit because I knew the poker environment and the landscape, and Monit and the rest of the team really had a good hand on the tech side of things. So we've been working pretty hard on that for the past year.
So what exactly does RF Poker do?
RF Poker has changed a lot, even in the past year. We started just making live streaming tables and trying to change and automate that experience. So a standard live streaming setup right now that almost every stream uses is you'll have RFID tech in the cards, and that's about the only thing that's automated. You have humans in the back, you have someone that tracks all of the action, every single action gets input in a computer, and there's always this question of, are my cards secure? Like, if there's somebody that knows in real time what I have, how much can I trust this stream? And for the amount that people are playing for on these streams, it's a serious concern at this point. So we've kind of aimed to take all of the humans out of that. So we have RFID tech in the cards, in the chips, in the table itself. So you can run a complete live stream without having a single human involved.
That's what I was reading about that. So basically, even the people who are inputting action don't see the cards if they have to.
Right. So a few card rooms that we're in still like to use the action tracking system, but we've made it so they get no access to the data until it's available to everyone on the stream. So from a security perspective, it's, I like to say it's the best that you can do with poker right now.
Now, the job's obviously going well. You come to the World Series this summer, and things don't go so well, right?
No, it was interesting. I'd gotten out of a long-term relationship when I moved back to Atlanta, and I had just started dating my current girlfriend, Sarah, about a month before the series, I would say. And, she knows absolutely nothing about this world, so I'm trying to explain that, I'm going to go for probably 6 or 7 weeks, and there's going to be a lot of losing. That's just kind of the nature of tournament poker. Even though I had this great year last year, it's not very likely I'm going to, have 20 cashes and win a bracelet, have 1 million final tables. And in I went out for the first 2 weeks, and I think I had 4 small cashes with nothing significant. And I called her up and said, I'm burned out. And she said, well, if you're not happy out there, just come home. So that kind of ended my first little stint out in Vegas this summer, pretty unsuccessfully.
With the thought that you would return, or no?
I wasn't really sure. I love the 50K Poker Players Championship. It's my favorite tournament. I know that I'm not a favorite in that tournament, but, as someone who can compete, I'd like to think I'm about break even in that tournament. And just the chance to, play poker with some of my best friends in the world and some guys that I would never get to play with. I kind of had a feeling I would come back out for the 50K. So ended up doing that and won a satellite to the 50K. So that kind of cut into some of the expenses on the trip. And then had a decent showing in the 50K. I think I ended up in 30th place or so, but out of the money. And I think I was on a plane home that night because it's just so hard to bust that tournament and then want to hop in like a 600 PLO the next day.
So you're back home in Atlanta, and Shaun calls. Shaun was just on the podcast, and he took credit basically for your entire main event win. So
I did listen.
How did it actually happen?
So I flew home after the 50K, and I think I was home for maybe a week or two. I'm not sure of the exact dates, but I was back at the office. I was pretty content just working and playing some games in Atlanta. And, Shaun called up the day or so before the main event and said, you're a professional poker player. You're great at no limit tournaments. Like, it's a travesty if you don't come out. And Shaun had gotten close with Sarah at this point, and he's messaging her like, you cannot let him stay home for the main. It's too good of an opportunity. And between the two of them, they definitely convinced me to come out. I think I would have come and played anyway, but it doesn't hurt to have, people that you're close to pushing you. I ended up flying out the night of day 1C and registering and kind of hopping in for the last starting day.
How did those first few days of the tournament go? Were you a big stack right away, or did you kind of just lay low and wait your turn?
Yeah, it was the first few days, nothing crazy happened. I had a fairly good day one table, as you would expect, but I think I only bagged about 80,000. Never was really in any danger, which was kind of a theme throughout the whole tournament. Day two, I think I started with 80 and bagged somewhere around 300, and honestly played one of the most defining hands of my tournament there. Everyone will kind of remember the Jack's hand from day 8. That'll go down as, probably the hand of the tournament. But there was a hand on day 2 where it was actually the hand before dinner break. So you always expect some interesting things to happen when everyone's already kind of standing up, ready to go. But I played a pot where on the river, the board had a 6-high straight on it, along with 3 spades. And I ended up shoving the river as a bluff just with the board. And a guy goes into the tank for about 20 minutes and ends up turning his cards over. I mean, I assume after a tank this long, he's just calling the chop. But he turns over his hand and he has 5-7. So he ends up having the 7-high straight and ends up folding on the end. And if he had called, I would have been down to 2 or 3 big blinds on day 2. But he folds and I end up, bagging 300 and kind of above average for the rest of the way.
You ever think about that guy, like a week later, he sees that you won the tournament and he wonders?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I told him in game that I had made the flush, so maybe it's something he doesn't think about. Maybe it's something he doesn't even remember. I've always kind of, I've seen people win tournaments a lot, and I wonder, did I play with that person? If you just play a couple hands with them 10 days ago, you might not remember, but it's definitely a hand that I've thought about a lot.
So I'm assuming you cruise. How was the bubble? How was the bubble situation? Did you have chips? Were you punishing people?
Yeah, the bubble was great. I think I came into the bubble day and we were about 15 from the money. And I want to say we were playing 4,000, 8,000. And I started that day with about 900,000. So I was chip leader at the table. I actually had Joe Cotta 2 to my left, who had like 30 or 40 big blinds. So I was kind of assuming that he would come after me a little bit and not let me just run over the bubble. But he did. He's a great tournament player. He's won the main before. He's got other bracelets. I kind of had some kind of inkling, if I was in his position and I knew how wide I was opening, I would come after myself a little bit, but he kind of played like everybody else and I was able to chip up kind of with no resistance. And I think I ended up bagging a few million that day.
When did you start going, oh, wow, this is getting serious. This could be big?
I kind of never had that feeling. I listened to your pod with Shaun a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned me just kind of being pretty relaxed at night, not wanting to talk about poker. And I wouldn't say I was super relaxed. It was more me not wanting to think of the future. There's still, you get done with day 5 and day 6, there's still hundreds of people left in this tournament. And, I'm a realist when it comes to this. I know with 200 people left in the main, even if I have double average stack, maybe I'm 1% to win. Maybe I'm 2% to win. I wouldn't say I really thought that I had a chance to win this tournament until maybe like the middle of day 7, when you get down to kind of the final 3 tables and you do that redraw.
So let's talk about the Jack's hand. Shaun said it was the most exciting moment of his poker career because he said of what was on the line, right? Your friendship in poker, essentially. That if you had not hit that card, your entire career might be different. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I was already, I've kind of spoken a little bit how I was already kind of not too bullish on the future of poker. And, if I don't hit this Jack on the turn, I have, I get 14th place, I cash for 400,000. And, I'm not going to say my poker career would be over, but I'd be a lot less excited to, go out and play the next series, or, maybe I would focus more on RF poker and less on my own career. But yeah, it's definitely a life-changing card. And and not just because of the money.
And what are you feeling in that moment when it hits? Is this like, do you ever feel like this might be destiny or, meant to be, or do you not allow those thoughts?
I definitely thought that was the first time in the tournament where I really had the feeling, okay, I'm going to win the main event now. There had been one other time a few days earlier where I was on the line with Ace King against Aces pre. I had the bigger stack, so it wouldn't have been, the end of my tournament, but had a similar feeling there, which was, I'm going to win this pot. When I got in the jacks against Josh and Aguilera's, kings and queens, I don't think I had that same feeling. I actually, remember going to the rail where Shaun was and saying, it's over. But as soon as the jack hits, I remember him just kind of grabbing me and saying, you're winning this tournament now. And I truly believed it right then.
It was pretty crazy final table as far as the speed and the fact that everyone was willing to get in so many big blinds. Were you surprised by that?
It was interesting at the final table. You're playing for such massive pay jumps, so you kind of are never sure who's just kind of going to try to ladder their way, make a few extra 100,000, $500,000, or who's actually going to play for the win. And I kind of had an idea that Juan, who ended up getting 8th, would play for the win. Adam, who got 3rd, would play for the win. And everyone else just kind of seemed very content laddering. Toby was kind of the only one that maybe made a light 3-bet jam. Toby was definitely playing to win. But there were players. I remember seeing Dean, who got 6th. I think he folded 30 or 40 hands in a row to start the final table. He open folded 8s, I want to say, in the hijack. But more power to him. Like, he made an extra $1 million by folding.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he's not complaining.
No. So it's like, well,
stay out of harm's way.
Yeah, I mean, it was. People were saying, it's the fastest final table in history, and from my perspective, it did seem like everyone was playing fairly fast. The big stack just happened to win every all-in, which is naturally going to make things go a little bit faster. And then, the final day, just everything kind of came together perfect with a couple of big hands.
How overwhelming does it feel to win that tournament?
In the moment, it's crazy. Like, I remember they asked me right after, like, what are you feeling? And I had no words. And even now, I think we're 2 months removed from it. It still doesn't feel all of that real. I don't think it'll really sink in even until next year when I go back to the series and see the banner hanging and start to get the recognition. I've only been in a poker room twice since then. And that's when it really starts to hit, because I feel like every single eyeball is just following me around. The picture requests never stop. And it's weird for me because I don't enjoy the spotlight. I've never wanted that, but it's, something that comes with winning this title.
You did get a party from Josh Aryeh, right?
Yep. So we had a little party that night after winning the main with everyone that had come out to rail. And then I remember coming home and Josh and Sarah kind of mutually created this surprise party for me. And I never thought I'd be the person that could get surprised, but it was great seeing everyone that couldn't make it out to Vegas kind of all together. But again, as you said, it's very overwhelming.
Now, as the world champion, the lofty title that is, you're expected to do interviews, you're expected to talk about the poker and the health of poker and be an ambassador and all that stuff. Does that annoy you? Is that something you embrace? How do you feel?
I embrace that. I've talked already about how I thought cash game poker at least was going in the wrong direction, and I still do believe that. I think that poker should be kind of an open public thing, especially in casinos. I understand why, VIPs would not want to play with a bunch of kids sitting around in hoodies not speaking. So, I understand why the private game market exists. I'm just not a huge fan of it, maybe because I've never been a part of one. But yeah, I do love the game of poker. I love getting people into poker. That's a big part of the reason that I've been with RF Poker. Is one of our goals is to get more people into poker and not necessarily just make poker better for the high stakes regulars. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing interviews, traveling around, and trying to grow the game.
The last question about the main event has to be the money. $12.1 million. Obviously, Shaun got some of that.
Yep.
But still, life-changing amount of money, I guess. I mean, if you decide to change your life. What are you going to do with it? You just going to sit on it?
I'm not sure yet. I remember saying that my life is not going to change a ton, and I don't think it will. There have been so many rumors and speculations of did they chop three-handed, and it seemed like Adam put in 80 big ones with eights. He would never do that if they didn't chop, and we didn't chop, but I did end up hedging a lot of my equity at the final table because it just seemed irresponsible to play for that much. So the 12 million is not the final number I ended up getting, but I did still end up making enough to make some serious changes to my life if I wanted to, but I don't see much of that happening. It's still going to be in the office a lot, on the golf course a lot, and playing poker when it kind of fits with my schedule.
Yeah, it seems like that's a sign that you had a pretty good life beforehand. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not making big changes, it means you were doing something right before.
Yeah, I mean, I was very happy before. I would say that poker was the one part of my life that wasn't making me happy, which was probably why I made kind of the transition out of playing full time. So the last thing I'm really looking to do is kind of be on the road 10 months a year again, playing every tournament stop. But I do know that winning this tournament and whatever ambassadorship comes with that is going to require me to play a lot more poker.
It's also put you on a trading card. Can you talk about that?
It has. The poker agency that I signed with, Poker Royalty, has done some great things. And one of the things they put together was, I think, a contract with Leaf trading cards. So I think they're going to be releasing those at the end of this year. And it's crazy to think that, my face is going to be on a trading card. I'm not like a celebrity. I keep telling people I won a poker tournament. It happens to be the main event, happens to be the biggest poker tournament ever. But, I'm not Babe Ruth. But it is going to be, incredible to be able to give some of those to family and friends. And, for people that are really into the trading card scene, I haven't been into that for many years now, but it'll be cool to think that they're opening a pack of cards and my face is going to be on one of them.
What is on the back of it? Like your poker stats?
I'm not sure. I know they've sent me a few pictures to choose from for the card itself. But I don't have full details of what's on the back. I'm hoping it's not my VPIP and stuff, or maybe my fans will be a little upset at how tight I played in the main event or how low my aggression was. But it'll be interesting when that comes out.
It's just your old dating profile and all your likes and dislikes.
Oh boy, that would be even worse.
All right. Well, you obviously say your life's not going to change much, but there is some splurging that had to have happened, right? Have you treated yourself at all?
I wouldn't say I've really treated myself. Sarah and I were planning on a trip to Italy. That's actually coming up about a week from now. We're going to go to the Ryder Cup over there. And we had booked some hotels that were a little out of our budget previously. Kind of the plans on maybe canceling them as they came up. And I think we kind of decided, what, we can splurge a little bit on this and stay at the nice hotels the whole time we're over there.
Yeah, treat yourself.
Outside of that, I don't see. I'm not the kind of person that values, big material things. I'd much rather spend the money on experiences and have a good time and grow it for something, more valuable in the future.
We have some rapid fire questions to close things off if you're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any hidden talents?
Yes. I was once one of the best Guitar Hero players in the world. It was actually the start of my poker bankroll.
What? Okay, tell this story.
As at Georgia Tech, I wouldn't say I was the coolest kid playing a lot of poker and playing video games, although that kind of fit in with the rest of the guys there. But I got completely addicted to Guitar Hero around that time and found myself in the top 10 in the world rankings. And there was a Guitar Hero tournament in Atlanta. I won the whole thing, and I remember the first place prize was something like $5,000 plus a signed guitar. I couldn't play the real guitar for shit, but I remember taking the $5,000, and that was kind of the start of my cash game bankroll senior year that turned into everything else.
That's crazy. Who signed the guitar?
A band called Alter Bridge, which was
I know Alter Bridge.
Yeah, an offshoot of Creed.
Yeah, it was after they got rid of Scott Stapp.
Correct. So the big finals for this tournament was at a concert venue in Atlanta that Alter Bridge was performing, but we opened for Alter Bridge playing plastic guitars on stage in front of 2,000 fans. So a little embarrassing, but still kind of fun at the same time.
That's a little embarrassing for Alter Bridge too.
Yeah.
That's crazy though. $5,000 for Guitar Hero. Did you have like a go-to track that you like to play the most?
No, I mean I was into all of them. I'm sure everyone that I was living with at the time was so sick of hearing the same 27 songs on repeat and hearing the plastic guitar clicking, 8 hours a day. But I was on the grind.
Do you play any real instruments?
No. I played saxophone for about a year or two in middle school, but I wanted to get back into it.
What about your musical taste? What are you into?
I would say I like a smorgasbord of music. If I had to pick one, I would say kind of like Vegas house music scene. Recently gotten a little more into country, moving back to the South, something I never thought I would say. But there's very rarely some music on that I can't jive with.
Now, I would have guessed wrong on you. I would have guessed like jam band.
No. If there's one thing that I'm not going to be into, it's that actually.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how normal are you?
I would like to say I'd give myself a 7 or an 8. I think what I do for a living, knocks me down a few points, but the rest of my life, I'd like to say is fairly normal.
We forgot to ask about where do you keep the bracelets?
That's a hard one. So my first bracelet I gave to my dad. So he's got that one in display. The main event bracelet is so weird because 1, it's so big. 2, it's so valuable. Every press release about the bracelet is, and here's the bracelet worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's not something I ever want to keep at the house. I've already had an incident where we found some people snooping around. So it's like, do I keep it in a safe deposit box? It seems like such a waste to just keep it in a box, for the rest of my life. So I'm actually talking with a couple of golf clubs in Atlanta, or maybe even like the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame or something like this, where I could have it on display.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then everyone gets enjoyment out of it.
Exactly.
And then eventually, when all the diamonds get knocked off of it, and then your family enjoys it.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing because like Super Bowl rings or something that you're going to wear forever. This bracelet is just so big, you can't actually wear it. So it's almost like, do you break it down and use all the stones for something else? Or is it something that truly just sits in a box forever? It's, a question I'd like to ask some previous main event champs, what they do with theirs.
It's more of a belt for your arm than a bracelet.
I remember sliding it up my arm. It goes basically all the way up to my bicep at this point. So I either need to hit the gym or find something else to do with it.
What about the biggest pot you've ever won or lost?
Biggest pot, they're probably both open-faced Chinese pots. In like 2015 to 2017, we were all just playing way too big for all of us, and they were probably multiple 6-figure pots. Playing like $1,000 a point with some multipliers. Maybe not like a single hand that was worth 6 figures, but I haven't played a ton of huge cash games. I've maybe played 2 6-figure pots, I think, in my life, where I think I chopped a 120K pot in PLO, where we ran it a few times, and I think I lost another one, but I've never really played super high stakes, and most of the high stakes cash I've played in the past 3 or 4 years have been limit mix games where you just don't get the big numbers.
Yeah. It's crazy the Chinese was going so big for a while. I remember everyone was playing for. And then when Open Face came, it boomed even harder.
Yeah, it just went insane, and it was such a fun thing to do to pass the time. And the crew that I was kind of running with at that time had so much money and were happy playing as high as I wanted to, which I was never the one that wanted to say, "Hey guys, can we play smaller?" You're gonna break me. But I will say, if you're gonna go broke, it is nice to go broke to your best friends who will keep you in action.
What about the best swap or piece you've ever had of anybody? Obviously, Shaun got a great piece of you. Has anybody returned the favor?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it briefly earlier, but in 2012, I was living in Vegas with a couple of guys I had met on 2+2, and a week before the main event, one of them has their 21-year-old friend from home come out, and he's playing a little bit online. He plays a 1K limit event at the World Series and cashes. And I remember day one day of the main, he comes up to us and says, "Guys, I just have a good feeling about the main event. Can you put me in?" So we all take 20%, and his name was Jake Balsiger, who got third place for $4 million.
I remember Jake's story. I remember talking to him and hearing about that and how he just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, so that was definitely my biggest backing score ever. That was something that, honestly, I was at a point that in 2012 where I was considering getting out of poker. It's always kind of seemed like right when everything is going wrong, or I feel like I'm at the end of the road in poker, I just have this giant score that keeps me in again.
Right when I thought I was out, they pulled me right back. Do you collect anything?
No, not
golf
at all.
Clubs, tennis rackets.
I've started collecting like some golf hats, I would say. My girlfriend Sarah is a golfer as well. She collects golf pencils from every course she's ever played, so she's up to hundreds of golf pencils at this point. But I would say, golf memorabilia is my big collection right now.
Are you one of those golfers who has like 8 putters that you switch back and forth, or do you have like the same putter you've had since like junior golf that worked out for you?
No, I definitely I don't keep my putters because putters end up broken in half or in a lake a lot. I think most people in poker would say I have a very calm demeanor at the table, and I definitely had some anger issues on the golf course for a very long time. So I've probably gone through a good 30 or 40 putters, I would say, over the past 10 years.
We all have to get it out somewhere. Some people like to break mouses. I like to scream in the car.
Fair enough. Yeah, I remember I broke the Guitar Hero guitars back in the day, and then I translated that over to the golf course.
Right. Like, I had the star power, I swear.
He knows the game.
I liked Rock Band a lot. My daughter plays bass now, so we have the real thing. We don't do the Guitar Hero anymore, but I'll still mess around on the drum one,
Oh yeah, that was always fun.
What was your worst job before poker?
Ooh, I had some bad jobs. My friends and I always played poker, like even back to like early days of high school, and I was the worst player, so I always had jobs on the side to keep myself in money to stay in the game. I worked at Kroger for a while. I remember bagging groceries and cleaning the bathrooms there, being out and like having to get all the carts in the rain, making like $6.50 an hour. That wasn't great. I worked at a couple of grocery stores doing stuff like that. I would say the Kroger one was definitely the worst. I delivered pizzas for a while. Wasn't too good at that. The only job I would say I had growing up that I liked was working in a movie theater, mostly because I could just sit there and eat popcorn, and we ended up having a poker game in the break room. But that was the only job I ended up getting fired from because I beat the managers out of too much money.
That's hilarious. If you could download one skill instantly, like in the Matrix, what would you choose?
Wow, that is a tough one. At this point, I would say I would download some way to get better at golf. I'm already a very good golfer, but I've always thought it'd be fun to be a pro athlete. So some way to get my skills up just a little more in golf.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize the difference between a scratch golfer and a PGA Tour golfer.
It's insane. I've played with kind of all levels of golfers over the past few years. I've played from guys who played D1 in college to guys who are on the Korn Ferry Tour right now. And recently I've become friendly with Stuart Sink, who has been on the tour for 30 years and won the Open Championship in 2009. And just seeing the things he can do with the golf ball versus what I can do. Even if by handicap purposes, he's only 7 or 8 shots better than me around, which is kind of wild to think. It's just such a different game at that level.
Yeah, and it's a game where you have to take advantage of all those opportunities if you want to be at the very top, and making pars isn't going to cut it.
No. Even at my best a couple of years ago, I think I was playing to a +3. But I still just, every time I would think, I have a chance of, playing some amateur golf or, qualifying for a USGA event, I would try to qualify and I would see the guys who are actually, at that level.
Did Josh let you play with Trump at all?
Probably a topic that I don't want to get into. I have played around with Trump, but I've kind of put my foot in my mouth when it came to that a few times, so I'm going to avoid that one.
Wow, that must. Did you at least shoot well?
I did shoot well with Trump. I remember we played. It was a very nice course. I had a very good time, and I'm probably going to leave it at that.
All right. Any other celebrities you play with?
I play a lot of golf with John Smoltz, the Braves pitcher from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
We've been good friends for about 15 years, mostly on the golf course, but whenever I'm lucky enough to get him on the poker table, I make some of the golf money back, but he's one of the toughest competitors I've ever played against. I'm not the most competitive person in the world. We've probably played 1,000 rounds of golf, and if I've won money in 10 of them, I'd be surprised. And it's not that he's hustling me; he finds a way to win.
Wow. Okay. I remember Josh saying he caddied for him for a little bit for some event or something like that.
Yeah, I've been begging Smoltz for years to let me caddy for the Tahoe event or the celebrity event. Maybe I'm famous enough now.
Yeah, I get the main event champion on the bag. What was your largest non-poker wager?
Probably a golf Calcutta. I remember this was early, maybe 2013, 2014. I had just started doing fairly well in poker. There's a big Masters Calcutta that they do every year. And I guess for the listeners that don't know what a Calcutta is, basically it's an auction draft of all of the players in the Masters. And in this particular Calcutta, they had told me in the past that the prize pool would get, north of $1 million. So wow. I was pumped up at the time. Maybe they had gotten me, they were coming after me. I was going to be the sucker in this draft, but I ended up drafting, I think, 7 or 8 players, spending like a little over $100,000, and the total prize pool ended up being $250,000. So I ended up, the only way I was going to win or even break even was I had to have 5 guys finish in the top 10 plus have the winner. And I remember the day after so we did the Calcutta on a Tuesday. The tournament didn't start till Thursday, but I remember I spent that entire day Wednesday just trying to sell off as much action as I could. And ended up selling off about half of it, but also ended up having Bubba Watson, who won the tournament, and having a few other guys that came in the top 10. So I think I broke about even, but it was a hard lesson to learn.
Man, did you realize no one else was buying any players?
Not really. I bid stuff up early, and I kind of felt that maybe everyone's just saving it for the end because they left a few good players at the end to try to keep people interested. But I think about halfway through, it started to hit me that, I was contributing about half the prize pool.
That's hilarious. All right. Do you have any nicknames?
I had a nickname in college, Juice. JOOOOCE. I think there were 8 O's. It's actually funny, at the final table, they started a chant, "The juice is loose." Some of my college buddies that were out there. But I think, they were there, everyone's drunk and everyone shouting. There's 80 people chanting the same thing. I think someone on someone else's rail thought they were saying "the Jew is loose," because I'm a Jewish guy, and I remember just them getting looks from the other crowd, like, "What are you can't say that. Like, this is going to be on TV."
That's hilarious. Do you wear headphones at the table? Yes or no?
No. Poker for me has always been a social thing first. I'm not a very social person outside of the table, but for some reason at a poker table is the place where kind of I feel the most comfortable. I just like talking to people at the table. It's probably the reason that I like mixed games more than big bet poker. Big bet just tends to be more intense. Everyone's got their headphones. No one wants to make a big mistake. But mixed games is more about just having a good time and needling your friends.
Are you superstitious at all?
I would say I'm a little stitious. Before this main event, I would have laughed at that question. But as the tournament went on, I started to do the same thing. I was wearing the same clothes every day. So maybe I'm a bit of a believer.
Who was your celebrity crush growing up?
That's a good one. Kristen Bell, Alicia Cuthbert.
Oh yeah, girl next door.
I guess I had a type back then.
Yeah. Any phobias?
I don't love heights. I'm not like a big adrenaline junkie kind of guy, so I wouldn't say I'm scared of roller coasters, but just not my cup of tea.
There's some pretty, scary golf courses. As far as tee boxes, I played a course in Mesquite, and I'll never play it again. I was shaky legged on every tee box.
Is that Wolf Creek?
Wolf Creek, yeah. It was. I couldn't do it. It was so. I was so scared.
Oh yeah, Wolf Creek is actually my favorite golf course in the world.
Man,
I like gimmicky golf courses. I've played some unbelievable, like, top 10 in the world golf courses, and Wolf Creek is still my number one just because it has so many interesting shots and blind shots. But I do remember I played that course with Darren Elias, and we drove out there, and I remember them making us sign the waiver to drive the car, saying that if you kill yourself out here, we have no responsibility, because it is, you're driving up and down. It's a little scary. Yeah,
those carts, like, there were some real steep spots, and every time I walked up to tee box, I actually hit more fairways than I think I ever have, because I was only half swinging. I was so afraid of falling off the mountains.
I could see it.
All right. Longest session you've ever played?
Probably in like the 48-hour range. I think it's probably during the open face days too. I actually do remember this one. We were playing. It was at a circuit stop in New Orleans, and we played for about 12 hours before day one. I went straight to day one of the tournament, and I remember playing day one there. And at the time, they held the tournament in like a theater, and there were these booths. So in between hands, I was like going and laying down and trying to take a little nap in the booth during the tournament. So you play day 1A of the tournament, played for 12 hours. Then we went straight back and played open face. And I think I played all throughout day 1 and day 2 of that tournament without sleeping, just playing open.
Man, crazy. Okay, what is your bold prediction for poker's future?
I think that tournament poker is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And cash game poker is mostly going to die outside of like the big live streams.
Okay. And we end the podcast the same way every time, with a question from the random question generator. Here we go. Do you have any recurring dreams?
I've never really been one to dream at all. I wake up every morning and I get to hear my girlfriend Sarah's dreams. She's a big dreamer. But unfortunately, I've never been one that can remember anything.
It's probably fortunate too, though. No nightmares that come up over and over.
Absolutely. Maybe it's the years of staring at 24 tables at once has just kind of ruined that part of my brain.
There you go. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time on your road trip. Good luck in the golf tournament. And, good luck the rest of the year with whatever poker you decide to play.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Julio.
That is it. That is the show. Big thanks to Dan for taking time out of his road trip. You can find him on X/Twitter at notontilt09. And be sure to check out his trading card when it comes out. You can watch his main event run with new episodes on CBS Sports, airing nowish. And also, of course, watch the replay of the live streams on Poker Go. You can find us at Card Player Media and also get all the latest poker things at cardplayer.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.